building from 1960 something. Let's see if it works today. Oh, it works today.
Why don't we only went there sit by?
Yes.
All right, we're on.
Welcome to the Utah Senate press availability and legislative update. Today we addressed a number of bills. One of those I think we'll highlight as soon as Senator Osmond gets here was his resolution on the 60th anniversary of putting the words "under God" into the Pledge of Allegiance. So we'll be anxious to maybe have some questions and have him talk about that. Here he is right now. Senator Osmond, we're just talking about your resolution. Can you just give a little brief presentation on that here for the press?
Well, the purpose of the resolution is based on the fact that about 60 years ago exactly, on Monday, February 10th, that will be the date when this concept of putting the words "under God" was brought to the federal Congress, and it was introduced as legislation, and then it was passed in June of 1954 and became part of the national pledge. And I felt it was important for us to recognize that at a time when the concept of religion and discussion of God, especially in issues relative to politics, are so sensitive. I think it's important to remember and to remind all of us that our country was built on that faith, that belief, that religious conviction, a belief in God, and that we reinforce that every time we talk about our Pledge of Allegiance. So 60 years ago, we are just celebrating in this resolution that this happened.
Any questions for Senator Osmond?
Was there any hesitancy to pass this resolution as both chambers have decided to stay away from religious freedom issues this session? I
sense no hesitancy. I think that the body was generally very supportive of having the conversation and moving this legislation forward.
Purely a recognition of an anniversary, and we don't see the connection there. While Senator Osmond's here, did you have a question on his?
I think you've already addressed this, but I'll ask it. Just with the school, the teacher development and allowing to do that bill. You say that you see this kind of just as like a Band-Aid, or I don't know if those are your words, but where do you see this going? Do you see trying to work in a way to where there is funding to do it, it's not taking away from children's days in school?
Well, first of all, there are several bills talking about professional development that will be before the legislature, both the House and the Senate. So you'll see efforts to try to fund professional development above and beyond what I'm suggesting here. My concern is that we've been talking about professional development for years, and we have real meaningful need that the local districts have the ability to start providing, but not the time. So this bill doesn't say, hey, look, use up all 60 hours in 8 days. It allows the local school district to make the decision. And they have to have a majority vote to do it of the local school board. We're going to use these days. Yes, we're taking away from time that the kids will have in school, but we're replacing it with high quality teacher professional development and giving them some time to get ready for their classes.
I know Senator Jones had spoke to that. Did you have any further comments?
Well, in the last several years, we've been cutting back on professional development days. And what we've learned in many of our education committees is the importance of training our teachers and giving them time to prepare for their classrooms. And so it's absolutely critical that we help them become better teachers. You know, a lot of people worry about some of the teachers and their quality, but we need to invest in them, just like many of us do in our businesses, to invest in our professions.
What would you like to see more? If anything?
I would have liked to have seen the old professional days come back full-fledged, and in fact, even more if we can. So it has to do with funding.
I'd like to speak to that too. I taught at Granite School District for 20 years, and I saw the problems that we had with technology. There's so many programs that the teachers cannot keep up with the programs. They want to, but there just wasn't enough time to teach them so that they can teach this reading program and that reading program. There's several in the classroom, so this is going to give them more time to be proficient at those programs. So when they go into the computer room, they know how to do it. They know how to teach it. They are schooled on all the different technologies. It will just be so much easier for them because it's hard to be a computer technology specialist and a teacher. They will be groomed together.
And this highlights a discussion that we had in the task force over the summer. It became very apparent, at least to me and I think other members of the task force, that professional development, a quality teacher, and having a quality teacher in every classroom is probably, if not the number one, very close to the number one focus that we need to have, because that really changes the outcomes for students. And so we applaud Senator Osmond for at least taking this approach, giving some flexibility. Mm-hmm. So it's a flexibility issue to the districts. So
thank you, President.
And thanks for all the comments, because this will be a continual discussion in the task force coming up. We identified a number of major issues that will, I think, be a focus in the next interim if our task force passes and we're reauthorized. But this is one of the things that we'll be focusing on, and we may come back with some more in-depth and broader policy questions. Agreed. In the next session, 2015.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
I'm finished now.
It was brought up in committee, the concern about the secretaries and school bus drivers, and was that addressed in an amendment, or is that?
No, we've agreed, though, to sit down and talk with them about what can we really do at the state level as this moves into the House. But we will have that conversation before this gets fully through. The concern, just high level, was that doesn't the removal of school days impact the earning potential of our classified employees who would have otherwise been at school if the school had not been in session? And there is a legitimate concern there, but it's also a reality check that we can't pay for people not to be there. So we're not going to try to find a way to subsidize them to sit at home. We have to figure out, though, how do we handle that and take that into consideration when they're making those local decisions to pull back on school days for the purpose of professional development.
By a show of hands, can you tell me how many of you guys burn wood in your fireplaces or your stoves? None of you? None of you ever burn wood?
No.
Well, I have a fire pit in the backyard.
What do you think about restricting through law people's ability to burn wood in their fireplace or their stove?
I think that we need to address it because it's an issue that it's not necessarily the low-hanging fruit, but it's the impacts of reducing wood burning are great. I think at least what I'm hearing, it's about 5% of the emissions that we have, and so it's a significant amount. Now, having it prohibited all through the winter, I'm not sure that's the right policy. In fact, and there's most of the days, we have a lot of air movement, the jet stream and everything is in our favor, and we don't have inversion problems, and so it's not a problem on those days. And, you know, folks like to have a fire in the fireplace or something like that. But we're asking our residents a couple of days before. We can predict inversions now because it's a high pressure phenomena. We can predict that several days in advance, and so let's not burn wood several days in advance of having an inversion and during that inversion, because that only makes matters worse. And so that would be, I think, a discussion I hope that we have, is giving some flexibility, as well as making sure that that element, which is a significant element in our bad air days, is addressed and restricted during that time and some time before, so it's not building up before a high pressure situation.
Would you favor fines if somebody did that, or you can see neighbors turning neighbors in if they see smoke coming out of the chimney?
Senator Adams?
You know, help me out, Bob. How many homes, and I've heard it, that use wood for their primary source of heat?
Not many, 5,000.
207.
270, thanks. So you have 270 homes, at least probably in the Salt Lake Valley, that do that. I don't know if we know who they are. And if they want to convert to a 90% gas forced air heat system but can't afford to do it, maybe we need to find a way to help them. You ask questions about restrictions. You know, if they want to be helped, why are we talking about restricting them? And so, I mean, until we know them or who they are, it ought to be handled on an individual basis. And you may take all 200 and how many?
207.
207 out. And if you take all 207 out and have one left, you've solved the majority of the problem. But so I think we're overreacting too quick until we know who they are. But if they're 5% of the pollution, surely somebody ought to be knocking on the door trying to help get rid of that 5% and seeing what we can do.
Well, would you favor fines if people, it's not that it's the only home, it's the only way to heat your house. This is just someone who, you know, puts in a fire and it's going, and the neighbor sees it and it's an inversion day. And
I thought there was fines now
On bad air days.
on bad air
On
days.
bad air days.
There is.
Mhm.
On the red
But
bird
only
days.
usually
Yeah.
16 citations.
16 citations.
Total.
Yeah. So that doesn't change, and we're not looking to change that.
I want to ask a question about drones. Senator Stevenson has a bill that's kind of laying out some restrictions for when government can use them. There's also a resolution kind of saying that Utah welcomes the development of the industry. I think it's coming out of the House, Representative Peterson. Just wondering if you want to talk about any concerns you guys have about either direction, or that Utah's kind of pulling in both directions with those bills, courting the industry and also putting some restrictions in place.
Well, I know Senator Jerry Stevenson has been close to this, and I don't see him here today. And anybody that this has been on there, Senator Adams, it's been something you've been involved in at all? I haven't been involved in this.
Not really.
I haven't either. I've read the bill, that's all I can say.
Okay.
Senator Maine.
Senator Maine?
No,
Oh,
I
okay.
just scratched my head. Thank you very much.
On that one, you'll probably defer that one until you get somebody who's
If
working
you'd
on
like
it.
to, if that's a question that you'd have, maybe we could have Senator Stevenson come into a meeting tomorrow or something, make sure he's here so we can address that question.
Beyond those bills, any thoughts in general?
Well, it sounds like a great discussion.
I've got to go because I've got another meeting to go
Okay.
to. Does anybody have any questions on the benefit corporation? We spent a
Yeah.
good 45 minutes today on the floor on that. You don't? Then
It was a great
That's good.
discussion. It's
Really
it's
good.
a big change in our corporation statutes.
It adds a big option. So
Yeah, absolutely.
okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Any text questions? Oh,
Today?
slow day.
Oh, anything on the caucus agenda?
Senator Okerlund.
We have
Thanks,
Sam's
Senator
report,
Hey.
something that we have put a lot of money into.
Thanks,
a lot of
Senator.
efforts into.
Thank you for always including
Today
us.
from Sam.
Thank you for commenting.
Dr. Red coming in to talk to us about air issues, air quality initiatives.
Dr. Red?
Dr. Red.
Dr. Red. I was just having this talk with the secretary. Yeah, from the House.
Uh-huh. Well, that's going to be most of it.
Is anybody an expert on 2Q?
No.